Thanks for that, William. Welcome back to the live Agriland Pavilion here at the Ploughing Championships, and we are continuing on our rural life, health, safety, farm, family, well-being as well. And at the moment we're going to focus on rural crime and rural crime prevention. I'm joined now by the Crime Prevention Executive with the IFA, Barry Carey, and Sergeant Graham Kavanagh, the Crime Prevention Officer with Garda Síochána. Thank you both for joining us today. Let's talk about rural crime, I suppose, and crime prevention. And Barry, it's something here at the Ploughing that you've really brought to the fore, because I know that you've launched a property marking campaign. So first of all, tell us about property marking and why it's important.
Property marking, thieves and criminals, when they take something, they want to offload it as quickly as possible. They want to get rid of it at marts and car boot sales and things like that. So Garda warehouses are full of items that can't be returned to the rightful owner. Property marking does three things. It's a deterrent to crime. If you've been the victim of a crime, the chances of getting it returned to you are greater, and the prosecution of those that may be caught in possession of it. It's a system through Property Marking Ireland was introduced. The Minister launched the property marking scheme in communities yesterday. Garda Síochána crime prevention officers like Graham introduced these around with the JPCs and county councils to have a property marking machine. And in the communities, everything is marked. Power tools, particularly for farms and rural dwellers, ride-on mowers, you name it, domestic households, from jewellery onwards to domestic household items, things that are attractive for thieves to do. And if it's marked, Graham will explain about the app then that records the property.
So, Graham, when you mean property marking, what exactly does that entail?
So property marking could be anything that's unique to you. So sometimes you'd hear us mention maybe the air code or something that's unique to the household. And it means then if you're putting that on the piece of property, for example a quad, if we stop somebody at 3 o'clock in the morning with this piece of property, we can see the air code, we know where it came from, the individuals that we stopped with it then are brought to the Garda station and dealt with accordingly, and that we're not spending time trying to identify who owns this piece of equipment and slowing down the process of dealing with the offenders.
Do you think as well it serves a double purpose, in the sense that if culprits went in for a quick smash and grab and grabbed a generator, for example, and there's an air code or initials of an owner on it, and they grab it, that they might offload it again knowing they won't be able to sell it as easily because it's marked?
It does two things. It's a deterrent for them to steal it, but then it makes the person that's buying it think twice about it. But then you go back to that conversation as crime prevention officers. Our role, I suppose, around the country is to engage with you as the farm owner to, I suppose, avoid that ever happening in the first place. So target hardening the place, physical security, and then the electronic side. A lot of the time it's trying to change habits. We still have situations where people are leaving keys in jeeps and cars and yards, and the vehicles are then being used to subsequently steal property from other locations. So simple habit changes are a big thing, it doesn't cost anything, and then eventually get them to embrace the whole crime prevention side from doing everything else. We launched the Garda Property app on Tuesday, and the property app works with the property marking in that the property app allows you to record all your property around the farm. Take pictures, upload the details, save it onto the cloud. We do not have access to it, but it's for you. If it is stolen, you have a physical digital inventory of it, and you're able to email it to the investigating guard or report it stolen.
So how do farmers or property owners get that? They just go online like you would with any other app, and what do they look for?
Google Play Store or the Apple Store, and just put in Garda Síochána or property app, and it'll come up.
And you mentioned there, it's about changing behaviour and maybe not being so complacent about security around a farm or around a rural dwelling. We see particularly, as news journalists on a weekly basis, it just seems to be common, and I know Garda Síochána are very good on social media for quickly getting on the case and putting up pictures of something that goes missing or something that was stolen. But we're seeing a lot more of, quads being stolen, generators, and even recently €16,000 worth of grass seed was stolen, which is sort of unusual. Are things like that, are incidents like that opportunistic in that they could be driving by and see the door of a Jeep open, or are they more thought out?
It's a mix of being targeted and a mix of opportunistic.
Absolutely, and this is one thing that IFA and crime prevention in conjunction with Garda Síochána, we're trying to remind farmers who are very busy. security and crime prevention isn't always in the foreground. And as a constant reminder, and opportunities like Ploughing, and opportunities like county executives to remind them, the Tullamore shows and so on and so forth, that we keep it at the forefront, and particularly with your previous caller Alice, through farm families, for health and safety, and for security stroke crime prevention, that we keep it up there in the agenda as we head into the change of daylight hours over the coming month, and when a lot of crime occurs in those particular times, longer hours, darkness, that we, in conjunction with the Garda Síochána, the Light Up, Lock Up campaign, Graham and the Garda launched that. We supported with follow-on, with emails and with online, and to make our farmers aware and keep it up there. As Graham mentioned, leaving keys in quad bikes, leaving tools and doors and sheds open. These people drive in, see it there, and there's a lot of scouting goes on. This is another thing. There are cases where people, under the guise of calling and offering services, we call it bogus traders and callers. And we advise people, unless you're going to get a receipt, unless you get a reference from somebody else about the particular case, no thanks, I don't need the service, and we don't engage. And again, it's community driven. Property marking, community driven. Trying to get communities together, and then there's signage that's put up in the communities to say this is a property marking area. And it does that, and it has worked in a turn. This scheme started off as a pilot in Cavan Monaghan district 5 years ago and was a great success. There was a 75% reduction in theft and burglaries because of property marking in those areas. So putting that out there in the farming and rural communities does a great deal, and you have then the farm families and the younger generation reminding the older generation, we need to do this, we need to be safe and secure. But then particularly with type of products and services and CCTV and the changing in technologies and the usefulness of technologies, which farmers and rural dwellers are very good at, innovative and creative for machinery and for farming processes. This is the security process, the safety process. And that's what we just try to achieve all the time in crime prevention, is to keep it up there, keep it in people's minds.
And Barry, I'm sure there have been many members of the IFA that have experienced theft or burglary. It's not just a burglary, and I know on Garda Síochána day in, day out are dealing with people ringing up, reporting thefts and so on. But to each farm, if a quad is taken or a tractor is taken or a jeep is taken off a farm, what kind of impact does that have to that farm or that family? Well,
first of all, there's the loss of the item. It's the business interruption, and it is a business interruption. There's the cost then of the insurance implication. There's the replacement cost again, and there may be financing, you see, on the particular item that's been taken, whether it's a tractor, trailer, and the top items are trailers, quad bikes, tractors, etc., and farm machinery, power tools, all of those specific things. And you're right, they have to be replaced, and that's the financial burden. And then if insurance-wise, there are implications for access, etc., and those are huge implications. And it is, but if somebody being on your property, it's a farm invasion. Somebody's in your home. If it's a burglary, people go, oh, and they think again, and there's a distress in families when this occurs. It's not like you break a piece of glass and you sweep it up and you put a new pane of glass in. Somebody's been in your home, gone through your personal items. Someone's been in your shed. You haven't seen them. So there's that worry and constant fear that it brings into the community, the fear of crime. People actually have a fear of crime more than actually the crime itself. And that's something that we try to achieve by making people alert, making people aware, and then IFA, in partnership with the Garda Síochána, out there all the time. We speak together in lots of various formats. I speak with all the other crime prevention officers at executive meetings to keep it just, not to frighten people off, to let people know that we're there, and good advice given in relation to lighting, CCTV, lock-up, and taking practical measures and steps.
Sergeant Kavanagh, you and your colleagues go out to these farms and you take reports if something does go missing, and I'm sure families are shook enough when you go out.
Just the whole mental trauma, it does affect mental health, particularly if they've been targeted a number of times. It really affects them. Part of what we do, I suppose, we're constantly giving out crime prevention advice, and people sometimes listen, sometimes they don't. But where ultimately we're trying to get to, as we do this together, is to make it less of a reactive process and more of a proactive process, that it becomes you change the habit, they do something. Because we find a lot of the time it's the simple things, it's the change of habit. If you do that, it can actually eliminate a lot of the criminal activity that goes on. I heard President of the ICA speaking earlier in a piece about a clean yard. And that's a huge thing. I mean, if I drive into the yard and a scrap metal left lying around, that's a target. But if I can actually give that a home, so if the local GA club is doing a scrap metal collection, or you offload that stuff and get rid of it as soon as possible, that's reducing the target.
Absolutely.
Something less to target them.
And as we head in, as Barry said, to the longer nights now and the darker evenings over the next couple of months, and there are many farmers here today, there are many people maybe who aren't farming but living in rural kind of isolated areas. I'm going home to a rural area myself. What am I not thinking about? Is there any short tips that you can give me now and say, Stella, when you go home this evening, be it your own property, be it your family home, think of these couple of things and I bet you, it'll stand to you.
So we used the lock-up, light-up piece, and we were discussing this. Electricity, price has gone up, lighting, but LED lights, dusk till dawn lights, but the LED version, cheaper to run, checking sheds, there's an American term, the 9 p.m. routine, checking around the yard before you go to bed, make sure things are locked up. The big thing is, I know myself in rural communities, there's actually a bit of movement, even during the night, from people, law-abiding people. If you see something you don't like the look of, report it. I still get this, and I'm out doing this. I have the Dublin accent, but I'm living in rural Laois. I know it, and I see it. If you see something that doesn't right, report it to us. You're not annoying us. We'd rather know about it now than be dealing at 6 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning with a theft. So deal with it now, and you never know, that report could lead to somebody's property being recovered. So making sure there's nothing left in the cars, keys are taken out of the vehicles in the yard, locking up the sheds. If you have a house alarm, use it. Checking this. If you do have CCTV, clean it. People get it and they never clean it.
That's true. I think a lot of people wouldn't even think to do that. You'll get a clearer picture. Obviously, we get all sorts of weather in Ireland. You have leaves
Cobwebs.
and sideways rain, cobwebs, everything like that, covering I suppose cameras, and that could really help as well. Even if nothing happens in your yard, if you've maybe CCTV, a camera that shines out to your front and you see a car passing to another area, it could really help the guards if they're following up on another incident.
Well, it's better looking at that, being able to try and identify something, than looking at a spider going across it and a load of cobwebs, And unfortunately, my colleagues that are investigating, that's quite a lot of what we end up with. That's no use.
And I do think this is the time of year, particularly as well, older people who might be living alone in rural areas. I think maybe younger neighbours can really tie into getting in touch with their more older neighbours and just checking in on them as we come into the dark nights, Barry.
I'm going to let Barry finish it, but one thing, and I'd be shot if I didn't mention it. Yeah. Older people, senior alert schemes, dependents in the alarms, please wear them. Please wear them. They're no use in a drawer. Wear them if you have it. And your local community alert or local group will help you get one if you want one, or your community guards. But if you get them, please wear them.
Yeah, the community alert system, I think, really worked over the last number of years. I know every village and townland in my particular area has the community alert, and I know Dad often gets the texts there. As you said, Sergeant Kavanagh, it might be nothing, but Barry, it might be something. It's worth saying it.
We started a campaign in conjunction with Garda Síochána for COVID, where we gave practical tips and advice. And the big thing was, for lockdown when it was coming, that people couldn't get out to see each other. But again, it was coming to the gate, saying hello to the next door neighbour. And that community, something that Irish people are well known for, the caring in it. And if you didn't see that, a phone call, hello, how are you? It's your next door neighbour. This is your next door neighbour might be a mile and a half down the road in certain circumstances. But to bring that community spirit back in. And the other thing too was WhatsApp group. It worked in a particular area. They had difficulties. But the big thing that Graham said, communities know that there's something aloof. If you see vans parked up, if you see something that's out of it, 999 112, not the local Garda station. That's been an agreement with the Garda Síochána. It goes into a central system. Ambulance, fire or Gardaí, please, like to report on suspicious activity, air code number or this address. It's a road number or 257 or whatever it is, and giving specific, a car is dispatched to investigate, and that type of community information coming into an Garda Síochána can prevent the criminals' access in particular, because no one knows better than, I saw a van down the road. Really? Don't be waiting to find out that, the 16,000 euros worth of grass taken out of the local agri store, or somebody has been burgled, or the quads have been taken. And again, these particular schemes have worked in a number of areas around the country where communities, 300 people on WhatsApp groups, linked into the community text alert, all of those particular things working together, but a real community sense has worked in certain areas, and we're going back to that again. And all of the things like the Garda apps, the surveys that are going, all of the things that are coming together at this moment in time. Yesterday was the Minister for State at Justice Brown and Minister McEntee launched the Rural Action Plan and all of those things coming together. There are those specific pieces there that are beneficial to all the communities and linking into them.
Absolutely, and as Sergeant Kavanagh said, it's about being proactive. So I suppose one proactive action is to download. You might remind us of that app again, Sergeant
The
Kavanagh.
Garda app, it's on the Play Store or an Apple Store. It's Garda Síochána, if you type it in, it comes up as on Garda Síochána, and it's a property app, very simple to set up, very simple. The one important thing, we're lucky enough coming out of the last 2 years, getting to meet people again, physical meetings. Every Garda division has a crime prevention officer. Contact the station if you want to speak to us. We're more than happy to link in with you. We regularly meet the IFA. Before COVID, we used to do meetings with them in conjunction with each other. But that's how we get the message out and try and engage with you.
Well, it's definitely important to be proactive so that it leads to prevention, as you said, because as Barry mentioned there, it is a sad situation when someone does invade someone's personal property, comes on site or takes something from their home. So let's hope the numbers of crime go down and down and down each year as people do become more proactive and more vigilant. Thank you very much for joining us on our live panel discussion today. That's Sergeant Graham Kavanagh, a Crime Prevention Officer with Garda Síochána, and Barry Carey, the Crime Prevention Executive with the IFA. Thank you for joining us. We'll head back now to